Chief Justice, I have the honour to announce that I've been appointed the judge of this court. I present my commission.
Thank you, Justice McGuire. Please be seated while I hand the commission to the Principal Registrar to be read. Principal Registrar.
By Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beasley, Companion of the Order of Australia, King's Counsel, Governor of the State of New South Wales in the Commonwealth of Australia. 2. His Honour Judge Paul Rennie McGuire, SC, a Judge of the District Court of New South Wales. Greeting. Whereas by the Supreme Court Act 1970, it is enacted that the Governor may, by commission under the public seal of the state, appoint any qualified person to be a Judge of the Supreme Court of New South Wales. Now I, the Honourable Margaret Beasley, AC, KC, the Governor aforesaid, in pursuance of the power and authority vested in me in that behalf, do, with the advice of the Executive Council of New South Wales, hereby appoint you, the said Paul Rennie McGuire, being a person qualified to be so appointed, to be a judge of the said court on and from the 8th day of July 2025, with rank and precedence as such in the said court and in the aforesaid state, next after the Honourable Justice Hayley Patricia Bennett, one of the judges thereof, provided always that you shall, except in case of leave of absence duly granted to you, actually execute the office to which you are by this commission appointed. Given under my hand and the public seal of the said state, this 18th day of June 2025, Andrew Scott Bell, by deputation from Her Excellency the Governor. By Her Excellency's command, Michael Daly, Attorney General.
Thank you. Principal Registrar, do you have the form containing the oaths and the Bible upon which they will be taken? Justice McGuire, I now invite you to stand to take the oaths, the oath of allegiance and the judicial oath.
I, Paul Rennie McGuire, SC, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, his heirs and successors according to law, so help me God. I, Paul Rennie McGuire, SC, do swear that I will well and truly serve our Sovereign Lord, King Charles III, in the office of Judge of the Supreme Court of New South Wales, and I will do right to all manner of people, after the laws and usages of the State of New South Wales, without fear or favour, affection or ill will. So help me God.
Thank you. Justice McGuire, I ask you to sit and subscribe the oaths, after which I will attest them. Principal Registrar, I hand you the oaths and the oaths to be placed amongst the court archives and the Bible, so that may have the customary inscription inscribed and presented to Justice McGuire as a memento of this occasion. Justice McGuire, on my own behalf and on behalf of your new colleagues on the Supreme Court, I congratulate you very much on your appointment. I welcome you to the court. You bring skills both in the civil law and in your second half of your career in the criminal law, particularly as one of the leading prosecutors of federal crime. And I acknowledge the presence of the federal director who's come from Melbourne to acknowledge your appointment. So congratulations. I have absolutely no doubt you'll make a very fine contribution to the important work of this court.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Mr. Attorney.
Thank you, Chief Justice, for the invitation to address the court this morning. May it please the court. Can I begin, of course, by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land, the Gadigal of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to Aboriginal people who are here today. Your Honour, Justice McGuire, just short of 2 years ago, I appointed Your Honour as a judge of the District Court following an illustrious career at the bar. Can I once again thank you for taking the next step today in your life of service, and on behalf of the people of New South Wales and of the New South Wales Bar, congratulate you on your appointment today. Today, the District Court's loss is this court's gain. Your elevation after such a short time is a remarkable one and is a testament to your skill and knowledge and a great many other attributes that you bring. I'd like to acknowledge your wife, Nicola, who's here today, accompanied by your children, Gabriel, Frank, Beatrice, Jack, and their partners. We also acknowledge your son, Bo, who cannot be here today. Your brothers, John and Mark, are present, alongside Nicola's mother, Sylvia, who's come all the way from England for today's swearing in. Your father-in-law, Terry, is watching a live stream back in the UK. And I especially would like to acknowledge Your Honour's late parents, Ruth and Labib, who would be incredibly proud of your achievements today. We know they're watching. Your Honour, you've said that you are humbled to walk in the footsteps of your legal heroes to the Supreme Court bench. Foremost among these heroes is your uncle, the late Judge Fred McGuire AO. Your Honour began his legal career as his associate in the Queensland District Court in the 1980s. And his legacy is one you said you hoped to emulate on the bench, and I think everyone here would agree that you have done just that. I had a look at Judge McGuire's comments from his own swearing in at Rockhampton in 1975. Like, Your Honour, he was an eloquent man. He spoke about the concept of justice being deeply rooted in our nature, our human nature, and living in a confused period of history where both the rule of law and institutions of law are under challenge. These concepts, including the importance of our legal institutions and the independence of judicial officers in protecting the rule of law, remain as true today as they were 50 years ago. And I have no doubt that Judge McGuire, who passed away in 2000, would be immensely proud of what you have achieved to date in such a short time on the bench. Your Honour, you've said that you're still getting used to people calling you Judge and having your former colleagues and opponents appear before you. Now you're going to have to get used to being the Honourable Justice McGuire of the Supreme Court all over again. One of your peers from the District Court has described you as the most judicial of judicial officers. She thinks you should be used in training videos for new judicial appointments because of your courteous manner and firm control of the courtroom. Her Honour has also praised your ability in her word to, Your Honour, Her Honour has also praised your ability to remain, in her words, decidedly normal. For this example, she cited, and I quote, the tragic disco dance you do in your chambers to turn on the motion-sensitive lights. On the serious side, Your Honour, you're well known for your work ethic, intelligence, warmth, and well-crafted and sound judgments. Another former barrister and now District Court judge was your opponent in several terrorism and fraud trials. He said having you on the opposite side was a mixed blessing because, unfortunately for him, you were just so good at your job. He also said you have an excellent sense of humour and always made him laugh. For some time, you two would tell people you co-authored a book about the end of times. A book entitled The Babylon Code, Solving the Bible's Greatest End Times Mystery, was in fact written by two American conspiracy theorists who share the names Paul McGuire and Troy Anderson. You've said that what you love about the courtroom is the art of persuasion. It's one of the reasons you left your legal career in London and returned to New South Wales, where you were admitted to the bar in 1999. Your Honour, you made a name for yourself prosecuting significant white-collar crimes, including the 2003 Renee Rivkin insider trading case, as well as the Plutus payroll case, which is the largest tax fraud prosecution in Australia's history. You have a knack for being able to simply and quickly distill complex material and cut through the noise to get to the essence of the matter. A previous junior counsel you once led said you were never one for performative flourishes in your submissions. She said your willingness to be fair meant you gained the faith and confidence of the jury. She considered you the best senior counsel she's ever worked with and expressed her disappointment that she hadn't yet had the chance to appear before you in your capacity of a judge. Well, now there's plenty more time, isn't there? I'm also told investigators in the Joint Counter-Terrorism Task Force continue to speak highly of you following the tragic murder of police employee Curtis Chang. And I acknowledge Selena Chang, who attended your first swearing in, is also here today. Your family, friends and colleagues praise you as a judge in person and as someone who is considerate, accessible and down to earth. You are someone who cares a lot and has a big heart. This can be seen in the lasting impression Your Honour's made on people throughout your career and personal life. Your role means you see both the drivers and the consequences of crime up close. This has affected you deeply, as has the experiences of victims and families that you've worked with. You care very much about social disadvantage and what this means for the people who stand before you. Your technical skill, astute judgment and humility that you have displayed over the last 2 years as a district court judge will well serve you in this court, Your Honour. I'm thrilled to have had the privilege to appoint you to the bench not once, but twice. We've both made history in that sense. And to have gleaned such an insight into your character as a judge and a person. Swearing in of judicial officers is one of the highlights of my job, and this morning has been absolutely no exception. Should your rapid rise through the ranks of the court continue, we're all going to have to quickly start recycling even more speaking material. So can I conclude by saying once again, on behalf of the Bar and the people of New South Wales, thank you very much for your life of service and continuing that life of service on this esteemed court. May it please the court.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Ms. Ball, President of the Law Society of New South Wales.
May it please the court. I too acknowledge the Gadigal of the Eora Nation, the traditional owners of the land on which this court stands, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I acknowledge and extend my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who are with us today. I also acknowledge Your Honour's family, friends, colleagues, and those fortunate to have been guided by Your Honour's legal mind who are here today. Many of their views make up what follows. In thinking about today, the solicitor profession offered insight into Your Honour's legal mind, approach to law and person. Instructing solicitors from Your Honour's day at the private bar recalled a man they were happy driving nearly 2 hours each way with between Campbelltown and Sydney for a lengthy hearing. It can be a tricky thing being subject to another person's music, podcast or conversational choices, but not so with Your Honour. A variety of balanced people with interesting lives and work remembered an excellent bedside manner. Indeed, people from the profession recalled not just your recent nearly 2 years on the bench of the District Court of New South Wales, but also, say, working under a wonderful mentor at Freehills in the late 1990s. On this point, Your Honour has recalled you were so good at looking after one very capable solicitor at Freehills that he left the profession and joined the priesthood. I can assure the court Your Honour's tutelage was not the catalyst, but even this former solicitor recalled that Your Honour was a very calm presence in the team, fresh as you then were from working as a lawyer in London for several years, approachable, a good teacher of many aspects of commercial litigation. And more than that, someone he admired, someone he respected, looked up to, and helped him grow not just as a lawyer, but also as a person. Others spoke about a great father who, along with your wife, Nicola, raised your children, Gabe, twins, Frank and Bea, and your youngest, Jack, plus your son, Beau. Several members of the profession who've worked with Your Honour in different decades noted a very committed and devoted husband and family man. And despite Your Honour and Nicola now being empty nesters, you have spoken of how deeply grounding your family has been, of how it recalibrates one's life and work. Perhaps few things in life could make the importance of this as clear as the many criminal matters Your Honour presided over in the District Court of New South Wales, beginning on the 23rd of August 2023. It was said that Your Honour has a strong sense of giving back to the community, especially the legal profession. That can be seen in several ways, including the balanced, fair and clear way Your Honour has decided cases in that court. cases such as R versus Mofu earlier this year relating to a home invasion. I single this out not because it was particularly in the public consciousness, but because it represents a matter Your Honour has presided over so ably, which nonetheless deeply affected those at its heart and yet was not prominent in the daily media cycle. Your Honour brings to this court then a refined awareness of the life-changing nature of the effects of criminal law. This is backed by having prosecuted many serious matters at the private bar, whereas we have heard you were admitted in 1999 and appointed as a senior counsel in 2015. Your Honour's experience at the bar ranged across commercial and equity matters and included early briefs from the Director of Public Prosecutions and appearing extensively in criminal jurisdictions of the District Court and this court. Over more than 2 decades at the bar, Your Honour developed a strong expertise in Commonwealth criminal law. That included prosecuting white-collar crime, insider trading, money laundering, taxation fraud, terrorism and corporations law offences. Judges you appeared before recalled seeing an absolutely superb advocate, one who was exceptionally well prepared and capable. Your Honour's legal submissions were said to have been outstanding, along your impressive mastery of the detail of evidence. Indeed, one judge described Your Honour's addresses to the jury as models of art. In evidence-heavy tax cases, it was said Your Honour was an advocate who had the courage and the skill to cut down lines of argument and evidence to run a brilliant prosecution and, crucially, make a case manageable for the jury. The calm, helpful way Your Honour did this and your fantastic performances are well regarded by members of our judiciary. And I know that many of your brother and sister judges on this bench were impressed with your work in the District Court and very appreciative of what this moment means for this court. The lineage of this was said to date back to your time as a solicitor, where Your Honour undertook impressive cases, including the Commissioner of Taxation versus La Mesa, a matter before the full federal court in 1997, as well as a dispute involving the tender and redevelopment of the Woolloomooloo Finger Wharf. Former colleagues, some of whom have gone on to be silks, also remember working on complicated tax matters with Your Honour when you were solicitors many years ago. You all worked until about 3 a.m. to finalise a summary in a spreadsheet for the partner handling the matter. But when you all returned to work several hours later, something had changed, making most of the work you'd completed the night before entirely redundant, a story many of us have experienced. However, I was told that Your Honour was and remains a person of great composure. In Your Honour's sanguine way, you took it in your stride, and very quickly the team refocused, one matter of many the world of commercial law must deal with. To do so, solicitors recalled Your Honour had a great sense of humour, but more than anything, you were a great encourager and an excellent listener. This was supported by a forensic ability to dissect legal issues and develop a strong plan to assist client with their legal matters. This is all in the past though, and whilst it brings us to today, perhaps it is fair to ask then, what is Your Honour's view of this appointment? In a moment, we will hear that. But may I also offer the court this? Your Honour recalled at the bar always being prepared and doing the best job you could. And the more often you did that, and the more inclination you had that judges you were appearing in front of thought you were all right, the more you thought perhaps there was some chance in the future that you too could become a judge. So far, much the same, perhaps as many capable silks, but here's where Your Honour departs in some measure. Your Honour said, and I quote, "But I never pretended that would actually happen." And when asked further about this, Your Honour added, "I am just one of many who might be considered. Numerous others would equally be capable judges." Your Honour averred that perhaps at the end of the day, it is largely a combination of things beyond one's control. And had you been the Attorney General, asked to select the next candidate for the Supreme Court, you'd find it very hard. In summary, Your Honour said this appointment seems surreal. And really, that's the heart of it, the ability to see not just what is, but also what could be. It invites us to ask new questions legally, professionally, and personally. It perhaps can also remind us that the law can provide clarity and shared purpose. At its best, it attempts to resolve serious conflicts with inquiry and hope. We need people who can live up to this in our courts, and engaged meaningfully, honestly and deeply. I therefore sincerely thank Your Honour for taking this appointment and serving as a Justice of the Supreme Court of New South Wales. On behalf of the Law Society of New South Wales, may I offer Your Honour our sincere congratulations on this very deserved appointment. As the Court pleases.
Thank you, Ms. Ball. Justice McGuire.
Thank you, Chief Justice, for your very warm welcome. I look forward to serving as a judge of this court under your leadership. I too acknowledge the Gadigal of the Eora Nation as the traditional custodians of this land, and I pay my respects to elders both past and present. I acknowledge and extend my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here this morning. Fellow judges, retired judges, Mr. Attorney, Ms. Ball, distinguished guests, members of the profession, family and friends, I'm grateful to you all for attending today. Mr. Attorney and Ms. Ball, thank you for your very generous words. Customarily, I am supposed to say something modest and self-effacing in response, but it seems to me you've both been entirely fair and accurate. With one exception, Mr. Attorney, there's nothing tragic about my disco dancing style. But thank you. I want to thank and acknowledge my former floor members at 7 Garfield Barwick Chambers, my former clerk, the incomparable Mark Grace, former floor members at 10th floor Selborne Wentworth Chambers, and former Freehills colleagues. Thank you all for being here. Thank you also to everyone who has sent me kind words by note, by email, by text message, or by telephone. Well, I should say those of you who sent me an old-fashioned letter, it's taken some while to get through the flooding system down at the Downing Centre. I also want to acknowledge Mrs. Selina Cheng, who is here today. Despite being the victims of a senseless terrorist act, Selina and her children have shown nothing but dignity in response. Remarkably, her son, Alpha, has responded to the crime by devoting himself to fighting racial intolerance and was justifiably awarded a Churchill Fellowship in recognition for his work. Selina, you and your family are paragons of tolerance, forgiveness, and compassion. It has been a pleasure to get to know you. Thank you for coming. I also want to thank the 2 exceptional police officers who investigated that crime, Detective Inspector Marty Forsyth, APM, and Detective Senior Constable Doreen El-Jarrah, and my instructing solicitor in those cases, Yashitha Ali's. Thank you all for taking the time to attend. Chief Justice, I am honoured to be sitting here today as a judge of this court. I've received a very warm welcome from the members of this court, and I look forward to serving with them. The courtrooms and corridors of this court have housed and continue to house some of my legal heroes, judges whose ability and demeanour I've admired and always tried to emulate. It is humbling and quite surreal to think that I will now walk in their footsteps. It is, however, with some sadness that I leave the district court. I'm very proud to have served as a judge of that court. In his recent statement on bail, the Chief Justice, quoting from the Honourable Tom Bathurst, said, "There are few people as much in touch with the realities faced by victims, accused and convicted as are the judges of the criminal courts. They are in the thick of it every single day." That statement applies with particular force to the judges of the district court. The jurisdiction of that court is challenging, important, and relentless. Daily, its judges are faced with traumatic evidence, difficult legal issues, distraught victims, and accused and offenders who are often the product of circumstance. It is a court where Bugme and De La Rosa represent much more than just pages in law books. Their frequent application reflects the sad reality of the lives of many offenders. It is the daily work of the criminal courts, the exposure to human stories, to the harsh reality of people's lives, which makes the work of the district court so challenging and so rewarding. To the hardworking judges of the district court, it has been an absolute honour to serve with you. I will miss the collegiality of that court. In particular, I want to thank the recently retired or partly retired Judge Hock and Judge Noman and Judge Anderson for their support, their friendship and their good humour. I also wish to acknowledge the guidance and leadership of the Chief Judge. Chief Judge Huggett has taken the helm of the court at a challenging time, recently including having to deal with a flood of almost biblical proportions. Despite the challenges, the Chief Judge has led with grace, enthusiasm, and good humour. However, Chief Judge, I feel it necessary to warn you, the next biblical disaster listed in the book of Exodus after floods was a plague of frogs, the modern equivalent of which may well be marauding Queensland cane toads. But then again, maybe not. I also want to acknowledge the work and efficiency of the District Court registry staff. In particular, I want to thank the Criminal Listing Director, Rob Finito, the listing officers, Jackie Junkovic and Peter Zavella, the Judicial Support Officers, Betty Cosmas, Ramesh Rashidi, and the tipstaves, Peter Martin, David Morris, Pablo Lara, and Angela George Harless. I also want to thank the hardworking court officers, sheriffs, and court reporters. It has been a pleasure to work with you all. I next want to thank my former associate, Ruby Smith, and my present associate, Casey Lawler, for their hard work and support. Your diligence, intelligence, and senses of humour have made my work so much easier. Thank you. As I did in my last swearing-in speech, I want to acknowledge the mentorship and guidance of Neil Williams, SC, and the Honourable James Stevenson, my former tutors. Together with Mark Williams, SC, who took me under his wing at 10th floor Selborne Wentworth Chambers, and the Honourable Geoffrey Bellew, SC, who took me under his wing at 7 Garfield Bowick Chambers. Thank you all for setting such exemplary examples. Geoffrey Bellew, to you in particular, thank you for your mentorship, leadership and friendship. You have led by your example of intellectual rigour, calm temperament and integrity and humility. I value the influence you've had on my career more than words can say. Turning now to family, it is a significant regret that neither of my parents, Ruth and Labib McGuire, lived to see either of my appointments. I'm sure they both would have been very proud. My mother, a lover of British history, would have enjoyed the pomp and ceremony of this occasion. As an animal lover, she would also be very pleased to know that no rabbits were harmed in the making of my robes. Mum and Dad were both of humble ancestry. Mum's heritage was dichotomous. One side of her family traced back to convicts, and the other side to a Scottish Presbyterian minister who travelled here with his 6 children, only to find that because his boat was delayed by the Boer War, the ministry had instead been offered in Tasmania to someone else. Dad was born in Bishmazine, a dusty, almost biblical village in the north of Lebanon. His parents immigrated to Australia at a time when government policy restricted Lebanese immigrants to work as hawkers. Despite that limitation, my grandfather worked hard to provide opportunities for his family. He initially worked at and then bought a wool grading business in Goulburn named McGuire Brothers, and then changed his surname to match that of the business. As I said in my last swearing in, I am grateful, at least because of the amount of time saved spelling it out, that he did not change the name of the store to match his Lebanese surname, which was Mfarij. And once again, for the court reporters, that is spelt M-U-F-A-R-R-I-J. In the years that followed, he opened McGuire Brothers stores in rural New South Wales and central Queensland. I am very conscious that the privileged upbringing that my brothers and I enjoyed was built on the determination and sweat of our ancestors. As a reminder of that background, an advertisement for the McGuire Brothers store in the National Advocate, a Bathurst newspaper, dated 10 February 1898, hangs in my chambers. That advertisement describes various items on offer, and a little peculiarly, it also states, "Our motto is live and let live." As far as I've been able to determine, that motto is likely a reference to the fact that the McGuire Brothers stores, unlike many others at the time, were accessible to people of all races, all religions, and all backgrounds. From those humble beginnings, my father became a surgeon and ultimately the head of surgery at the Royal Brisbane Hospital, and my uncle became a barrister and ultimately a judge of the District Court of Queensland and the first president of the Queensland Children's Court. They both became heroes of mine. Each had a quiet confidence and a complete lack of self-entitlement. Now to my brothers, John and Mark, thank you both, and thank you to John's wife, Jo, for travelling from Brisbane to be here today. Mark, I'm sorry that your wife Susie couldn't attend. I should add I am pleasantly surprised that when hearing the earlier speakers refer to my calm judicial temperament, that my brothers didn't both leap to their feet and object. I also want to thank my cousins, niece and nephew for making the effort to be here today. Some of our very good friends are also here today. Unfortunately, some were unable to attend. I have been humbled and surprised at how genuinely excited each of you have been on hearing the news of this appointment. Thank you for your friendships and thank you for coming today. My oldest school friend, Brian Chu, has flown from Brisbane to be here today, and our very good friend, Joe Kidston, who is due to fly overseas within a matter of hours, have made a special effort to be here. Thank you both. On the topic of special efforts, Nicola's mother, Sylvia Sadler, has flown from England to be here. Unfortunately, her father, Terry, could not attend, but he and Nicola's brother, Mark, are watching the live stream. Sylvia, thank you for making such a monumental effort to be here. I think it's fair to say that my children have been much more excited about seeing you than they were at the prospect of seeing me dressed as Santa. Sylvia and Terry have been extraordinary, loving and supportive parents-in-law. I think it's fair to say that I chose my wife and her parents very wisely. To our children, Gabe, Frank, I'll be with you in a moment. We rewind a bit. To our children, Gabe, Frank, B and Jack, who are present today, and Bo, who sadly could not be present. I want to thank you for your love and for giving me and Nicola the special privilege of watching you each develop into such fine adults. I am immensely proud of each of you. During my last swearing-in speech, I apologised to my children for being the cause of IBS, which in our house stood for irritable barrister syndrome. Since my appointment to the district court, they have each moved out of home. I suspect because I've inflicted the slightly rarer form of the condition, irritable bench syndrome. Your mother and I are very proud to see you spread your wings, leave the nest and express your independence. Well, I should say your moving out of home has genuinely been the cause of mixed emotions. On one hand, it has caused some sadness. Yet on the other hand, we are really quite overjoyed at having the house to ourselves. You are, however, welcome back at any time, particularly now that you've learned to clean up after yourselves. I also want to acknowledge Gabe's partner, Tom, and B's partner, Finn. Thank you for coming. Frank, I'm sorry your partner, Anksha, couldn't make it. She's overseas at the time. Next, I wanted very briefly to tell you a few anecdotes about my less than successful appearances in this court. I'd been at the bar for less than a week when a senior barrister approached me with panic in his eyes and urgency in his voice. He was jammed and asked me to appear for him to receive a judgment in the Supreme Court at 2 o'clock. It was then 10 minutes to 2 o'clock. So, a little naively, I went off to make my first appearance in the Supreme Court. At the end of delivering the judgment, the judge called on me to make submissions on costs. I had no idea. I had no knowledge of the brief, no knowledge of past settlement offers, and no instructing solicitor. Sensing my predicament, His Honour said, "Mr. McGuire, if you choose to wear the robe, you must be in a position to assist the court." Now, those words have resonated with me for the last 26 years, and they turned out to be the best piece of practice development advice I could have ever hoped for. From that moment on, I never again stepped into a court unprepared, at least not knowingly so. Which leads to my second story. The day after my elevation to senior counsel, I was to appear in the Court of Criminal Appeal. I was confident and well prepared. My opponent's submissions, I thought, were incoherent, disjointed, and made no reference to any authorities, with one notable exception, the Magna Carta. My written submissions, on the other hand, were coherent, persuasive, and adorned with reference to authority, including some which had been decided more recently than 1215. I was confident that my first win as senior counsel was assured. However, as I robed that morning, my instructing solicitor rang and apologetically informed me that he'd discovered that, as a result of some photocopying error, I'd been briefed with only every other page of my opponent's submissions. I had not noticed the error because my opponent had not been bothered to use paragraph or page numbers. The missing pages, handed to me just as the judges came on the bench, contained all of the coherence, persuasiveness, and reference to authority, which was previously absent. Unsurprisingly, I managed that day to grasp defeat from the jaws of victory. I made my first appearance as a judge in this very courtroom on the 30th of April 2024 on the happy occasion of the ceremony to mark the appointment of Her Honour Justice Sarah Huggett as the Chief Judge of the District Court. As the least senior member of the bench, I was in last position, the last seat in the back row on your left, or at least I should have been in that seat. It seems that one of my more senior colleagues became confused by the obvious complexity of the seating arrangements and sat down, leaving a spare chair to his left. And I know it's a his left because I've seen the videotape. Consequently, I remained chairless and standing for a good part of the ceremony. Eventually, a new chair was produced, and I sat hoping that my embarrassment went unnoticed. That hope was dashed when Justice Beach Jones made a beeline for me at the morning tea and said how disappointed he was that a chair had been found because he was hoping to see me standing in the naughty corner for the whole of the ceremony. The moral, I think, of these stories is this. If you choose to wear the robe, at least in my court, although I expect you to do your best, I know from personal experience that we all have good days and we all have bad days. Perhaps my judicial motto, a little bit like the McGuire brothers stores, should be live and let live. Bear in mind, please, however, everyone's patience has its limits. Lastly, and most significantly, I want to thank my beautiful and amazing wife, Nicola. In my last swearing-in speech, I made mention of Nicola's intelligence and work history, a law degree with first-class honours, a Master of Laws in Human Rights, a pedigree of working for some of the best law firms in the world, including Linklaters and Allens, and an active interest in social justice and pro bono work. They are just amongst some of her many achievements. What I haven't told you, Nicola, is this. Since that speech, a not insignificant number of people have approached me and said that the Attorney General had made a terrible mistake in that he appointed the wrong McGuire. Mr. Attorney, please cover your ears. I agree. Nicola is tireless, intelligent, driven, and passionate. Recently, she's turned her environmental interest into back-breaking work as a bush regenerator. Nicola, I am humbled that you've allowed my career to progress at the expense of your own, and I am more grateful than words can ever say. Nicola, who is as modest as she is accomplished, told me that all that was to be said about her at the last swearing-in was that she is a housewife who spends her days moving vases from room to room. I've now bravely ignored that advice not once but twice. The truth is my wife is an extraordinary force of nature. Nicola, without your support, your encouragement and love, none of this would have been possible. It is not so much that I don't know where I'd be without you. It is more accurate to say God only knows who I'd be without you. I am a very lucky man. Chief Justice Bell, Mr. Attorney, thank you for the trust that you've placed in me today. I will do my best to ensure that that trust was not misplaced. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice McGuire. The court will now adjourn.
All stand. This honourable court is adjourned.
Look at Victoria like.